Sir, Senator Allen, any questions?
Yes. Thank you, Mr.
Please
Chair.
proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it. Thank you, Colonel, so much for being here today. I'd like to go back to the Board of Supervisors letter where they talk about certifying the Maricopa County election. And they have 5 points that they make for the reason why they call this a reliable election. And my concern is, of course, over the Dominion tabulation equipment. They said it was vetted by a bipartisan equipment certification advisory committee before the contract was finalized. And as required by law, the committee tested the functionality and accuracy of tabulation equipment before it was used in any Arizona election. Well, after listening to your testimony, that does not give me any confidence, because the machines, of course, can perform very accurately. It's after the fact, after the election starts, after the ballot is starting to be put into the machine, that these problems start arising. So is that accurate to say that this should not give us confidence about this being a reliable election?
Ma'am, anything that is software based can be manipulated and changed with a click of a button. Or, you got 2 USB drives, plug one in and you get one algorithm, you pull it out, you plug another one in, you get a different algorithm. And we also believe on the connectedness, these can be pushed down from the top and shifted down. So think of it like a casino or a state lotto. Whoever owns the eye in the sky, you can control the margins. And that's really, I think, what we're looking at.
Well, certainly from your testimony, I can see that. And I have one more question, if I could, Mr. Chairman.
I believe Senator Borelli has it to that point.
All right, go ahead.
All right, please proceed.
Well, I was going to switch down to the 1% early ballots that they did, and I had a question about that. So, Sonny, if you have something to what I said before, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Colonel, so basically what you're saying, for example, since the techs are already there on site during the process, so if a machine jams up and naturally they call the tech over there to go fix the unjam, they could literally, without anybody noticing, because they're the techie people, they could stick a thumb drive in there and upload, change the numbers, manipulate, whatever.
There was an affidavit in Pennsylvania from, I think it was last week. A gentleman supervisor had a Ziploc bags full of USB drives, and they noted that he was inserting the USB drives into the machines at a much higher rate than would be necessary or that they had seen in the past. So, yes, it's very, very.
So now I have it to that point. Forgive me, but what I think you're saying is that they have just created an electronic footprint, either in the data download that you're seeing real time, that you'd be seeing some kind of a spike, or is there something that's captured on the machine that itself, like a memory card that is resident on the machine, not that is actually talking to the hard drive?
The machines, for the most part, the voting machines are just run by, removable software and data cards, the cards that actually hold the votes. The backup servers is really where the true story would reside, as far as the uploads, downloads, the change, the error warnings for the mismatch errors.
So would you be able to show with specificity a machine in Maricopa County going all the way across the pond, inserting data into a server? Or would it be an aggregate of all the machines that were in Maricopa County, for example? Is it by individual tabulator, or is it by the server here that collects? Can you help me understand that piece?
Let me,
that probably goes back to your headache graph, I'm thinking.
A schematic that sort of shows that.
The reason I asked the question is we're still looking for evidence, and if that is in the evidence package, that's certainly something that we would want to know about. If we don't have it today, something that could be forwarded to the body would be great.
Let me see if I can make this bigger. So this is Dominion voting, the high level. It's a block diagram of how everything's connected, and I can print this off and provide it to you, or whoever would do your audits. But it's kind of hard to see when it's blown up. But you've got ballot boxes, ballots taken out, and this tracks all the way through the image cast central to ballot images, and this is really what's voted. The ballots are scanned into these image casters, and there's an electronic image created. It goes into results files, and then it goes into validation, adjudication, auditing, reporting, and publishing, and then to Democracy Suite EMS, the Democracy Suite servers, the database servers, the document management servers, and it kind of shows you how this all goes out to the world from this whole system. Election data, this is kind of the top feed to all these servers, but this is really, it's a network. I mean, it's a computer company. It's all networked. It has to be.
So let me reframe the question. We probably would not be able to identify any specific tabulation machine showing up on the server because it's all aggregated.
Yeah, it's these tabulation machines go through this process, but the results files. So if you work it backwards from the server, you would be able to go back to a ballot image, an electronic ballot image.
All right, thank you. Senator Allen, you
Yes.
had another question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The other thing in this letter by the Board of Supervisors was they commented, again, of what made this a reliable election, that the election day ballots from 2% of vote centers and 1% of early ballots is required by Arizona law, and it yielded a 100% match to the results produced by the tabulation equipment. So that should give us, and all the counties do this. They do this hand count, this little audit of a small percent of the votes to see how it matches up to the machine. So could you explain how we shouldn't have confidence in that particular, how can they make that match up to the machine then when they just arbitrarily pick out 1%? If there's vote dumps that are happening and things that are happening throughout the process.
I would just say it's something we learned a long time ago, garbage in, garbage out. If you've got 1.9 million votes that the signatures aren't verified, and they're just reading bubbled in, ballot cards, then yes, the ballot cards, when they run 1,000 ballot cards through, are going to come out with 1,000. So that small batch would represent what those particular ballots say, but that's why there's chain of custody requirements. That's why there's verification requirements at each step along the way. So if one of those steps is broken, then the validity of the whole process is in question. You just don't know.
Right. Thank you. I think we're definitely, sir, in a new day when it comes to what is taking place across this country with voting, and we're going to have to probably really look at that. Thank you.
Representative Townsend, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Colonel, I just have a quick follow-up to some of the stuff we've been talking about as far as the security of the machines themselves. And as we know, whether or not something happened or didn't happen, I'm most concerned with voter confidence. And if there's all these holes, then we're going to really deflate or collapse voter confidence. So I would like you to reassure me on one particular item. In the tabulation room at the MCTEC here in Phoenix, in years past, you had to have a special badge, and only people that were certified to be in that room with the machines and the tabulation and all that were allowed in there. This year, teams of 25 adjudicators in that room in the tabulation room with these machines.
would it have been possible for someone in that scenario to wander over to the machine and have a conversation and put in this thumb drive you're talking about, or is it deeper than that, or something that's happened from remotely, or how secure are these machines? Because we know that there's no chain of custody on the hard drives, and the machines we saw in the video left alone for almost a week in one of the loading centers, untended, unsecure. How could somebody, a regular person with nefarious intentions, walk up and change this whole election by putting in a thumb drive and changing algorithms? That's something that could have happened where we don't have to worry about that.
Either an individual that has knowledge of the systems and how to, operate in the system could have an impact again from the server. They could be sitting in Nigeria, and as long as they've got an internet connection, they can get to that particular server. If they had access to, the data from the malware that's on the server, they could get the login and password from, a Pima County operator or a Maricopa County operator. So there are just so many places that they can be interdicted or penetrated. There's just too many to describe. But there's a lot of ways it could be interdicted.
Mr. Chair and Colonel, so what I'm hearing you say is I can't be confident that a volunteer of a political party that, the entire recorder's office and the elections director, everyone could have been on the up and up, and this is the most secure election ever. But if one random volunteer with the right information were to be in the tabulation room, could have then breached the security of the machine.
Correct.
And therefore, we cannot stand here and say we are confident with that kind of access to these machines left in buildings for a week. We cannot say with certainty that this is a secure election, and we have 100% confidence that nothing went wrong.
And you just brought up the chain of custody issue, and that's a critical vulnerability path. So that if the chain of custody was broken, then you really don't know. You can't say with confidence that it was a fair
Thank
election.
you. And Mr. Chair and Colonel, last point. If you were in charge, would you want a recount? Would you want an audit? Would you want a do-over? What would you do?
A forensic audit will tell you what was processed, but to the mayor's point earlier, as soon as those mail-in ballots, which were 1.9 million requested, and I think a good percentage return, if those signatures weren't verified, then you can count the same things over and over again, but you're starting with flawed results already. An audit, a full audit, would be able to tell you if those were bad ballots or pre-printed ballots. You could do a full forensic audit on the actual ballots, but once the envelopes are separated from the ballots on that many mail-in ballots, it's almost impossible to go back without doing a forensic analysis of each ballot and the paper and the ink.
Okay, and Mr. Chair and Colonel, do you have any information about potential shipments of ballots to Arizona and other places from North Korea or something like? Do you have any information like that?
There were several affidavits that were provided to the legal teams. I don't have those affidavits with me now, but there were affidavits and suggestions, and I think more of those are in process to obtain more affidavits on those processes.
Mr. Mayor, can you tell us whether or not you have got, I don't know if you heard the question, or do you have affidavits that counterfeit ballots were somehow shipped into Arizona?
I'd have to look.
All right, thank you.
I would have to look.
Representative Cook, any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you, and I'll make it brief, but I do have some stuff that I'd like to say. Is that, Colonel, when I ran for office in 2016, I got a phone call one day that one of our county recorder's office information had been breached, and all of the voter information was for sale on the dark web. That was my first instance of becoming representative about this hacking and computer stuff and what's out there. I just went through my third election as the top vote getter, and I would like to say that I continuously have been tried to be hacked on my personal or ledge account or whatever is out there on the internet. I later learned from people, Colonel, that the reason why this is done out of the country, and according to your graph, is that it is harder for us to track these people down and prosecute them when these computer anomalies and things happen from outside the country, inside our country and state. Would that be true?
We would not have the legal jurisdiction to go seize or search a server outside of the U.S.
Thank you, Colonel. And would this make sense that if you had a simple phone number and then you went on the internet and then researched that phone number of where you received a text message and it was from Ukraine, would that not be a red flag that your phone or information was trying to be attacked or infiltrated?
Correct, it would be.
Okay, so moving on to that, Colonel, what I've noticed is that about these voting machines and these plugged-in USB drives, when in fact, when we watch across this great country of ours, in many states, we have very few amount of counties compared to other states in here. You got to target 2 counties. If you notice that rural Arizona and rural Arizona legislators are up here, we're ready to go to work today. Our constituents demand it, and we demand it as their representatives to work for them to solve these problems. But what happens, Colonel, is that the same thing when we look at this country on a map and counties that vote for President Trump versus counties that don't, it's the population and the masses. So I'm going to get to my point about Maricopa and Pima County. Okay, in rural Arizona, we call it the great state of Maricopa because Maricopa County has more legislators at the legislature than rural Arizona does. If we add all of ours up, we still don't have the numbers to be an equal voice at the state legislature, but we have to work harder, which we can. So if we look at Maricopa and Pima County, if I was going to, now we're going to get down to vote centers, okay, targeted vote centers, Colonel. I wouldn't have to have a USB drive or to infiltrate every voting machine in every vote center in Maricopa and Pima County, would I? Or would I just need to target those individual voting centers in those 2 massive counties in the state to do what you are saying, to take votes and shift them over in those numbers? Do you understand what I'm asking?
I've seen analyses that boiled down national elections to zip codes, to just zip codes.
Mr. Chairman, I get fired up when I get into this stuff because I read and hear everything that these people have said. It has happened to me. And I just thank you again for your information, confirmation. But when I go back to the 2016 hacking, what I see as a pattern, Colonel, is that there is a plan. There's a larger plan, and it's not a conspiracy theory, and I'm not nuts. But if I wanted to engage in a plan in 2016, Colonel, would I not start hacking and getting the VOTA databases and information of projecting of why do we have, what is the number, 2,000 or 1,200 voters, I believe, in Maricopa County registered that I believe have voted at a vacant lot? I mean, if I really wanted to go down the road, isn't that the way you would target it?
Yeah, and again, it's you can interdict this in multiple levels and multiple methods, and I think that's what's happened. There's so much out there, and it's to your point. You know, you're not a conspiracy theorist, but it's really hard. They've made it so hard for the public to understand it, and we call that in deception operations ambiguity increasing. And
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Colonel, I have the last question is, and what concerns me over what I've read and seen is that could the data that you say could be traced back only to the scanned ballot at this point, so it can't go back to the individual voting machines, could that be bleach bits or whatever that stuff is? Could that be, could the tracks, the longer we take to actually get the machines and check these things out, Could there be time to erase that information and cover up if there was a crime or misdealings?
There could, but now the batch files will go back to the precinct and the machines on the tapes. So you can track it all the way back to the machines and the precincts by the tapes, and it's what we showed in the Antrim County, those printouts on the precinct level. So that you can go back. But really all that's necessary to do, there's not really a bleach bit. It's just pulling the USB drive out of the voter machine and the tabulators. So the machines themselves, other than the servers, really don't have a lot of resident information. The tabulation machines, they can have some stored images, but where you retain these, the federal election requirements require, and I can't remember the U.S. Code Title 46 rings a bell, but the 22-month retention of federal elections records, it would be done in those the ballot images and electronic backups. So the data is retained, and there you can do forensics on it as long as it's the actual servers and the actual machines.
Colonel, thank you for your time, your patriotism, and Mr. Chairman, I yield any remaining time I may have.
Thank you. I believe Senator Gowan has one more question, and I just need to remind the panel, time grows short. I think Mayor Giuliani has significant more witnesses and evidence that he'd like to have heard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Colonel, I just want to get on, come back to the Dominion situation here. Where are the backup servers?
I'm sorry?
Where are the backup servers?
I am not exactly sure. I can try to get that information provided to you.
And this company, I think the mayor said they were a foreigner company. The Canadian, is that what it is?
So we know there are sites in Toronto. Their offices are in Canada. So we know that there were data there. They also have servers in Serbia and other countries. But as far as knowing for sure where the data from Maricopa County went and resides, we don't know that. But they've got backup servers.
So an audit, because we talked about that a little earlier. First off, would that find where the server is and where the information would be?
Tracing the flow of the information, yes, sir.
The audit would do that.
Correct.
But it also tell us whether or not it's true or not that the 1.9 million signatures were or were not verified, right? So we would have an absolute
So
knowledge
that would
of
be
that.
Colonel, could you get a little bit closer to the microphone? I'm getting a lot of people who are
Sorry.
saying, I can't hear the guy talk.
Okay. So the adjudication of the signatures on the ballots, that would be totally separate. It wouldn't be necessarily a digital forensic process, but that audit would be, have to be conducted at the county level on all the envelopes.
So if we did an audit, if we were able to do that, tell me the things that could come out of that.
Well, if the signatures on the envelopes were invalid, you could necessarily get a percentage of the votes that would be disqualified. But again, when the ballots are separated from the envelopes, you can't tell which ballot came from which envelope. So really all that would tell you is a percentage of that, the percentage of those mail-in or absentee ballots that were not legitimate.
So what could the server tell us?
The server will basically tell you all of the electronics. So once the ballots are processed, the batches and the images, that'll tell you where all those goes, and it'll also tell you any changes to the software, any updates, algorithms that were in place, and that's all present at the code level, and that's really what these companies have balked at, providing access to the code, because they say that that's their intellectual property, and it's they've been successful at preventing folks from analyzing the code.
So they're utilizing their system for our elections, but It's their property.
And counties and states have signed up for that.
Thank you.
Senator Borelli, final question.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Colonel, just for clarity, not only can these machines be manipulated with a thumb drive and everything else, it can be changed remotely outside the voting center.
That's correct, and there are references in the user's manual that show how they can do that.
Thank you.
Mayor Giuliani, anything else with your witness here?
No, I think
All right.
we covered everything.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
Colonel.
We are a commitment-based purchase website, meaning that when you purchase something from our website, you are making a commitment to give away these brochures, give away and put on bumper stickers, put up the yard sign, or hang the flag. Our vision is to bring public awareness to organized pedophile rings. Our mission is to turn prey into predators, and our values is righteousness, bringing the light into the darkness, integrity, stay consistent, and endurance, never quitting. We also recommend to subscribe to other channels like Ryan Dawson, Sean Atwood, for more information around organized pedophile blackmail rings. Thanks so much. Please subscribe and have a great day, everyone.